Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, 10 Tips to Improve Your Marketing in 2022. We're really happy that you can be here. I know that you have probably a lot of things on your plate, so we appreciate you spending time with us here. My name is Katie, and I'm going to be moderating today's event. And before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. So let me just move my slide here. Okay. First of all, this webinar will be recorded, and you'll get an email with the recording afterwards. And all attendees are muted, but if you do have questions, please put them into the question box or the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the session live. All right, so I'd like to get started now and introduce our speakers today. So first we have Lily Petherick from Tessian. Lily leads strategic marketing operations at Tessian, and in her 4 years at the company, Tessian has grown by 220% and has raised $127 million from the world's most prestigious venture capital firms. Lily has been on the front line of growing Tessian's top of funnel go-to-market motion, building it from manual lead passing to a fully automated revenue machine. Welcome, Lily. And next, and you can pop up your video, Lily and Bonnie. And next we have Bonnie Crater. Bonnie is the president and CEO of Full Circle Insights. She's also a 5-time VP of marketing at Genesis, Netscape, Oracle, Stratify, and VoiceObjects. While valuing the creative side of marketing, Bonnie's real love is marketing operations, measuring marketing investments, and determining investment optimization. And now as CEO of Full Circle Insights, Bonnie's working to help fellow marketers get the data needed to succeed. Bonnie holds a BA in biology from Princeton University. All right, and remember, you can ask all the questions that you want in the Q&A panel at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to those questions at the end of the session. With that, I'm gonna let Bonnie and Lily take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie, and welcome, Lily. And it's wonderful to, Lily and I had a chance to chat yesterday, and was great to chat. We've got a series of these 10 tips. What'll be interesting today is, of course, we chatted yesterday and we wrote down what our 10 tips were yesterday. I wonder if the tips will be the same today as yesterday, because there's a lot of tips.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Bonnie. Looking forward to it.
Great. Lily, you're in London, so this is the end of your day. It's kind of the beginning of my day. But so thanks for spending your evening with us. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about your job at Tessian. So can you tell me a little bit about your role, maybe how long have you been there, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and again, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the discussion. So I've been at Tessian for 4 years, leading marketing operations. And Tessian is a fast-growing SaaS cybersecurity company. So our mission is to secure the human layer. We stop data exfiltration, spear phishing emails, and accidental data loss, and we do it without disrupting your employees. So it's been an incredible journey here. We've grown a lot in my time. I've seen the top of funnel go-to-market motion change a lot, and have been involved in that firsthand. At Tessian, we're selling to a really technical buyer. So we're selling to CISOs and CIOs. They're discerning with their time. They don't want to be, annoyed. They want to be talked to with the right person at the right time. So it's been a really interesting challenge to try and improve their journey with us and to try and create more pipeline.
Awesome. Well, I just want to remind everyone about the Q&A. So as we go along, you may have a question that comes to mind. So feel free to just pop that right in the Q&A, and we'll answer it at the end. I like to start off when I talk to folks is just understand a little bit about their tech stack. I was wondering if you might be able to comment on what's the tech stack at Tessian look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're a tech company, so as I'm sure you can relate, it's pretty extensive. But I think probably the most useful way to think about it for me is we have these sort of 3 pillars that I look at, and I'm always trying to improve or trying to use to make our marketing work as well as possible. So we've got our CRM, which is our source of truth across the whole of commercial, where we, it's pretty basic. I'm sure everybody on the call has a CRM, but we have our contacts that come in, we have our opportunities, we see how much how much closed won we've got. So that's one pillar. Then we've got our lead optimization pillar. So this is everything to help that journey from MQL all the way to SQL, and for us that's kind of late stage opportunity. So that includes things like being able to auto book time in with our reps, just anything that's going to improve the journey for a prospect so that they have the best interaction with us. And then finally, we've got tracking. We have a sort of motto on our team, which is you don't know what you don't know. So the tracking gives us the ability to say, okay, we've implemented this new lead routing tool. Is it actually having an impact? Or let's look at our overall marketing. How well is it working? So those are kind of the three pillars that we work with, and all of this is integrated in some way or is within our source of truth, which is Salesforce. That's super important for us because we work so closely with sales. So as long as everything integrates there and we can have a discussion with sales where we're all looking at the same data, things work smoothly. So kind of high level, that is how our tech stack is set up.
Okay, cool. So we're at the beginning of 2022, and I wanted to ask you about, we all go through this planning phase in Q4, typically, and most of us are in Q1 right now. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you use the metrics to do your 2022 planning.
Yeah, yeah, they are at the forefront of all of the planning that we do, and how we kind of decide as a team, what work we're going to do and where we need to put resource. So for every quarter, our executives meet and they have discussions about what the pipeline should be, and then we work closely with business operations and sales to work out like how we're going to break down that and reach our pipeline. And we will look at everything from a ramp time to how many reps we've got in seat and average deal size, and like the length of most deals. So we'll include that information in our model, and then it's totally a case of seeing what we've done in the past. So how many SQLs or how much pipeline has something like a webinar, like have our webinars brought in, and then we will kind of work out how many we need to do in this quarter to hit that target. So it's a collaborative effort, but we do also then look at all of that historical data in order to make those decisions and ensure that we can scale in control.
Right. And so in terms of like establishing metrics, do you have some sort of key tips for folks that in kind of reassessing your workflows for 2022?
Yeah. So I've actually been thinking a lot about this. Our team adores metrics, like maybe a little bit too much in some regards. So I think the question is, what are you trying to optimize for? And is hitting this metric going to allow you to do that, or is it going to create the behaviors in your team that's going to let you do that? So that's kind of the main thing that we look at when we're setting those metrics. And then also we look at the levers that we can pull in order to hit them. So let's say our target is higher this quarter, we're going to have a look at our past performance and say, we use Full Circle, we love it, and one of the really cool things that Full Circle does is it lets us see where the source of most of our MQLs. So let's take something surprising we saw in webinars. We recently saw that actually partners really help us get a lot of MQLs for webinars, and that those convert really well. So we might say, okay, we've got this goal, we're going to leverage partners in a way that we didn't before, we're going to spend more time and effort there, and then hopefully that will help us hit that goal. So I hope I answered your question. I I feel, did you ask also about reassessing workflows?
Well, why don't we go there? Is
Yeah.
you have existing workflows, and how often do you take a look at those, and what's your process for assessing those workflows?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to understanding what is going to help us hit that pipeline target, I think, for the majority of what we do. So, for example, for website, we will look very heavily at whether something, you know, is working or not, and if it's not working, then we'll pivot. We also, for events, is a bit different. We'll take into consideration our brand as well. Like, is this event going to impact our brand, and therefore we'll go. But something that I'm thinking about a lot and have been considering, and I'm considering in 2022, is how we're going to track based on new privacy rules. So I think it's something that is going to impact a lot of marketers. We can't anymore see how many people open our emails. We can't track cookies in the same way that we did a few years ago because of GDPR. So something that we're reassessing is, how can we market to people if we're not using their data? And we're looking at placing ads based on the content that they're looking at that time. So maybe that's a little bit of a left field answer, and it's something that's interesting to me because I'm in cybersecurity, but I think it's something that lots of people will be reassessing going into 2022.
Yeah. So a big thing for me that I like to talk about is the actual discussion about the data, so I like to ask people, how often do you meet with your team or with the sales team? What do those meetings look like? How often does it happen?
Yeah, so I think I like to say that sales operations in particular are my best friends, and I don't necessarily think they feel the same way, but we meet very regularly. On a tactical front, we meet once a week and we discuss all of the metrics that are coming in and how they're doing, and we discuss kind of the work that we're doing around them. And then in a more strategic sense, we meet every other week, and we have discussions about, okay, like, why is this territory potentially not performing, or should we reassess what type of tools we need? Do we need a kind of data analytical tool for lead scoring? And those conversations happen at a bi-weekly cadence, so still fairly regularly. On the other side of things, we talk very regularly with SDR, who are our junior sales team. I think other people call them BDRs. Basically, the people who are on the front line, who are calling up prospects every single day and saying, hey, is our product to you? So at Tessian, that team deals with our inbound leads. So in my role, I have like great reason to make sure that they are getting the most out of our marketing leads, and that I give them as like all the tools I can. So I've set up this meeting called Smarketing. Don't hate me for the name. I know it's pretty lame. And we have a Smarketing dashboard. We use Full Circle for that, and it allows us to see how things are working in the moment. So I will go to that meeting and I'll say to them, hey guys, we had an event last week. We had 700 MQLs. I'm curious to know how come none of them have converted, for example. And in that way, I'll get their qualitative feedback. So as well as having an understanding of the data, I also get their feedback in that way. In that meeting, we also have our marketing campaign managers come in and say, we're doing this thing. These are the talking points. So, a huge part of working with commercial is making sure we're all on the same page, and I think that helps us push heavily towards our goals. But having some metrics there often starts those conversations and makes them really, really productive.
Yeah, working off the same data set, so you have the same information to talk about, is so important.
Completely agree. Yeah, it comes back to that philosophy of what is your source of truth, and you've got to trust it, they've got to trust it, and then it's such a good platform to having a strong relationship with the sales team.
Yeah, so prior to my experience with Full Circle, a big debate was like, whose data is right? And we'd spend a lot of time discussing that. We'd never get actually to the meat of the conversation, which is, what should we do based on the information we have? So this has evolved quite a bit over the last, 10, 15 years. When you're working with the sales ops, SDRs, what do you have SLAs in place that they follow? Can you see that in the data, whether they're following the SLAs?
Yeah, we've had SLAs for a while. We had them pre Full Circle, and at that point it was totally theoretical, which I kind of look back at it now and I'm like, what even was the point? But so our SLAs, for example, are if somebody comes in for a demo, we say within an hour the SDR should be following up, or any other marketing source, it should be a day. And we use velocity tracking in Full Circle to be able to see whether that's happening. It's another really good conversation starter with the sales leadership, because we can, it might be anything that is stopping that. It might be that there's something broken on the operational side of things. It might be that there's an issue with certain reps or in certain territories. So yeah, we do use SLAs and follow them quite closely. And I think also on that velocity kind of side of things, we use it for other things as well. We use it to look at how well certain campaigns are working. So for example, I've been looking closely at the webinar numbers and seeing that it's taking slightly longer than we expected for webinars to convert. And so we'll pivot our strategy there, and something we're doing is being much more aggressive with webinar follow-up. So yeah, I like the ability that Full Circle gives us to look at both velocity, so look at velocity both for SLAs, but then also for like strategic planning for our team as a whole.
Yeah. Do you have different SLAs for different types of leads? Like you mentioned webinars, but do you have a different SLA for that versus some other type of lead that's coming in?
It's just the mix of the two. So contact demo requests, we ask our sales team to follow up within an hour, and in general they're fantastic. They're actually much faster than an hour, which is really, really cool to see. And then all other marketing types, so that's events, resources, webinars, syndicated content, that is normally 24 hours. And they stick very closely to it, which is great.
Yeah. So in your discussions, and these regular meetings with the SDRs or sales ops, you have quantitative discussions and qualitative discussions. How does a typical discussion go? Like what would happen?
Yeah, so I think a good example is probably this marketing meeting. We will basically like I will say per campaign type, this is how many MQLs have come in, this is the conversion rate, and often it's a situation of them saying, actually, like normally I'll call on someone in the group and I'll say, hey, you created a really cool opportunity, can you tell us about it? So they'll get to share their win as well, which is really, really nice. Or it will be a case of like them explaining to us, it wasn't the right person at this event. We've had difficulty following up. In terms of our SLAs around time to follow up, 99% of the time they're on it. Like they're really, really good, and we have that number which we track. But if there is an issue, that will be a discussion with the sales leaders, and it's not like it's always a very easy discussion because we can see it in the data and they're looking at the same thing as me. So it's kind of more like I'll flag it to the head of the SDRs, and she'll be like, okay, cool, I'll take this forward, like let's look into why this is happening. So I think fairly easy conversations, and I think that comes back to, again, us all reading from the same hymn sheet, it all being in Salesforce, which is our source of truth.
Awesome. Okay, so I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about improvements, and so when you look at maybe a conversion rate, how have you worked through improving conversion rates in your experience over the last 4 years?
Yeah. So I mean, for a long time, we were always trying to optimize. So my role is really built around optimizing our team. But I think as I said, you don't know what you don't know. So even though we were optimizing, it was often difficult to understand how that was working. And since then, we've got full circle, so we can now see those conversion rates really, really clearly and retrospectively. So some of the things that we've done where we've seen solid improvement is all around lead flow, like optimizing the lead flow and improving the prospect's journey. So we have a tool which lets people book automatically time in with our SDRs. That's made a massive difference. We've also inputted a smart lead routing tool, and I know that Americans might say lead routing. Is that correct? So same thing. And the idea there is that the prospect is speaking to the right SDR at the right time, and therefore has a more productive conversation, and it flows better. And then on top of it, these marketing sessions, any enablement session with our team. So we have seen a hard conversion rate from MQL to SQL lift from 2.5 to 5.5, which I think it's pretty good. We're considering like how we can improve it further, especially as our lead volume increases. That's another thing to consider. Like, how big is our sales team? What's the lead volume? So we're looking at like inputting a data analysis tool that's going to improve lead scoring. So we only pass the very, very top. But all of this, like it's important to basically be able to see how these tactics and new tools are working, and having the confidence to know, okay, this is where we are. We're going to input this thing. If it works, we'll be able to see an improvement in that rate.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I wanted to just ask you about common mistakes, because I've seen a lot of these different types of marketing operations. And would you have some advice for folks around maybe 2 or 3 common mistakes that our marketing ops people may find themselves making that you can help them avoid?
Yeah,
maybe you may not want to admit it, but maybe you made a mistake. I don't know.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think one that I'm definitely learning from at the moment is, I mean, it's a boring one for sure, but it's not documenting the processes that you're doing. And I'm feeling the pain right now, which is why I'm bringing it up. My policy now is, if we make a large change or we decide on certain rules, create a document, send it to the stakeholders, get them to sign off on it, and then put it into your wiki, whatever that may be, or have it in an open file somewhere. Because as Tessian scales, we've got so many new people, and we have the same discussion over and over again. So having that documentation is such a time saver as you scale. I think another one is enabling your team. When I started in this role, I wanted to make sure everything was perfect and make sure that like all of the processes were fantastic. Absolutely everything was done by me, and that was fine. But again, our team scaled, and I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this. And I read online that Amazon basically made all of its marketers do a Marketo course, a certificate. And I was like, okay, we're going to take the enablement route. For me, what made it super simple is I created naming conventions for everything. I then trained each new member of the team, and I would throw them in the deep end, and it would literally be like the first campaign they would do. I would ask them, okay, please can you build it? I'll check it. And when I checked it, I'd be very candid with them about what they had done incorrectly or correctly. And yeah, it's also, I think, a really important thing. I think enabling your team prevents you from being a bottleneck, and also, you know, gives people access to these incredible tools. They're going to be using technology for the rest of their time as a marketer, or really in any role. So enabling them is not just good for you, it's really, really good for their careers, and, you know, when they become marketing leaders in the future. I think finally, not having a really close relationship with your sales team. You know, commercial, and when I say that, I mean marketing, sales, and customer success in the case of Tessian, and it might be different in other organizations, but the teams that are generating revenue and creating pipeline, you all have the same goal, which is to make the company grow. So being on the same page as them, whether that be, you know, you have one source of truth that you're all reading from, or you have regular meetings, you know, to make sure that they're enabled on your content and they understand what marketing's doing, and they can give feedback directly from the customer on how that marketing is doing. That's so important. And as I've said, the stack that really has improved our MQL to SQL conversion has all been built around improving that lead flow, improving how sales deal with marketing leads. So I think that's a really, really big one for me too.
Awesome. Well, I think I'm going to kind of leave it there, Lily, and see if we have any questions from our audience, who, as we've kind of chatted about here. Katie,
yeah, and I also wanted to pop in and kind of give everyone a little bit of lay of the land, go over the 10 questions that we just went over. I know this is a lot of text, so feel free to take a screenshot, but we'll be sending this out as well. I just wanted to go over this so you can have kind of a little, tie it up in a bow, and then we can go into questions. But so the first one is, and you guys feel free to jump in at any moment while I'm kind of reading these off, but the first one that they talked about is to remember that cross-functional team meetings are so important. Ensure that you're communicating with sales regularly. You kind of can't do your job without sales, and it's really important just to push towards the same goals.
I just want to say that Lily's is doing a total best practice by having a lot of these meetings and regularly scheduled on and looking not just at the quantitative information, but getting qualitative information to complement that. So you actually know what to do, which is great.
Exactly. I totally agree. Just to add as well, I think you build up a rapport. You know, we sometimes have a sales ops meeting and like, we don't have anything new to discuss, but we just have a chat. And that is also really important in a remote world, which sadly, I think we're living in as the reality moving forward.
Yeah,
totally. And this is sort of goes along with it, but ensure you're looking at the same data as sales. You really want to be on the same page, and it really is important to not have silos. When you're looking at the same data, you'll both be on the same page. You'll all be on the same page.
Yeah, and I really like having all the data in Salesforce in your CRM, and the reason is that it's the system of record for sales anyway. So marketing people should have all of their data in there too. And then if you have it organized in a way so everybody can easily see what the metrics are, it just makes perfect sense. You know, management is looking at it, the individuals are looking at it, everybody has access to that information. And I'm a big believer in transparency, so that try to give everybody as much information as possible, because that'll only help them with their jobs.
Absolutely. Number 3, make sure you've set up SLAs, service level agreements, that you can all agree on. Like Lily said, it was really important that everyone got on the same page with these. Number 4, you don't know what you don't know. I love this one. Invest in advanced analytics and tracking tools to enable your team to know what's working and what isn't. And I loved how you invested in Full Circle for advanced analytics. shameless plug there. But it's true, you don't know what you don't know. So it's great to be able to dive in a lot deeper.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. And I think it also lets you be much more creative. There have been so many examples where we've started to understand what's working and what's not, and putting more money behind the things that are working and seeing gains from that. So it's not only that you don't know, but there's stuff out there which is going to surprise you and really improve your marketing, which is really exciting.
Yeah, the main thing is that you don't have to guess anymore. Like I used to guess, when I was VP of marketing, I was guessing, like literally guessing to see of what was actually working and what wasn't working, because I didn't have a really nice set of data. But you don't have to have that anymore. Everybody can get the data, which is great.
Yes, exactly. And if you have a theory and you have the data to suggest it's going to work, you can take the leap. It just makes everything a lot more easier. But just make sure you have tracking set up for that. And then I have another slide here. Again, lots of text, sorry, but we're going to just go through this quickly. Do a deep dive on how campaigns performed last year. The data might actually surprise you, and having that data will give you the confidence to pivot and help you move forward and create new customer journeys in 2022.
Yeah, a big word here is confidence, I think. I don't know how you feel, Lily, but with this information, even if it's bad news, at least you know what's not working, and you can make a course correction quickly.
Totally. We had sorry, we had an example of this, and stop me if I've already given this one, but we saw that most of our resource types weren't creating SQLs, and so we just ungated them all, and are in the process of doing that at the moment. So it's quite a dramatic pivot, and we're going to see if it impacts our pipeline, but we're confident to make this because we're like, oh, we can see it's not impacted stuff in the past, and it will be a better user journey for somebody to be able to read a piece of content. And then sneakily we've got little book demo buttons in our resources, which we can also track to see if people convert in that way. So the data allows us to make that dramatic change, and then we'll be able to track to see if it works or not. Maybe I'll be coming back in 6 months' time and being like, no, terrible idea, but at the moment I'm hopeful that it's going to work well.
Yeah, well, good luck. It's always good to run the experiment, because you can always change back if it doesn't work.
Exactly. All right, number 7, this is a big one, is using metrics to get budget. Defend your marketing spend by hitting your targets and showing the exec team you can grow and control. I think this is a big one because a lot of people don't know what's even working, so that's hard to get budget.
Yeah, 100%. We are able to say to our CFO, hey, we hit our target. Not only we hit our target, but we very accurately hit it. And we understand what resources we need to get to the next stage. And that's always going to be a challenge at a fast growth company, because you're trying to outdo yourself every single quarter. But that being able to show that control is really, really important.
Yeah, when I would take on a new VP of marketing or CMO job, I would literally, the first person that I would go hang out with was the CFO, because I wanted that person to trust me that I wasn't going to waste a whole bunch of money. But by actually being able to show them numbers and impact and how the money was spent and that what's working and what's not working, they just want to know that you have a good handle on this. That's what they really want to know, and that you are making good business decisions about where to place investments. And so it just builds a lot of trust and confidence across the company.
Absolutely. And I loved this next one, number 8, that you mentioned, is create documentation and get sign off from your business partners, because when your team grows, they'll know what's going on. And this is also important for when people leave and new people come as well. Well, I guess that's the same thing as when your team grows. But I've been in so many situations where the person leaves and nobody knows who built the reports, and nobody knows what was going on. And this is really a big one, I think, when there's turnover, especially.
it's kind of a killer because it's not as much fun as building new stuff. I don't think it's not as much fun as being really strategic and deciding on how you're going to work your marketing in the next quarter, but it does save a lot of time. And maybe it is strategic because it means, again, that you're being super transparent with the rest of the wider company.
Definitely. And time saver for sure.
Yeah, much more efficient than everybody guess and relearn.
Yeah. And number 9, look into tools for smoothing lead flow to improve conversion rates, like booking meetings directly for reps and smart routing solutions, similar to something like Drift or Chili Piper. I know we use Drift and we like it. And then number 10, enable your team to use your tech stack to reduce bottlenecks. Basically, make sure your team is trained up on your tools, and it'll just save you a lot of time this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to reiterate, I think it's great for them to be up to date on how tools work, and especially something like Salesforce. I think, almost any job that you go to, if you're a marketer, you're probably going to be working in Salesforce or something similar. And so having that confidence is just a massive benefit for you as a marketer.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, let's move into Q&A. Again, if you have any questions, please put them in the question box or the chat box. We have a few here. So what do you think about multi-touch attribution models, Lily and Bonnie? Let's hear from you both.
Yes, well, I can go first. At my team, or in my company, we decided to have very simple last touch attribution with a 6-month lead time. And the reason for that was just to keep it simple. We have a saying which is KISS, keep it sales simple, or keep it simple stupid, however you're feeling on the day. It's really, again, enabled those conversations because we have this like overarching belief that we're all pushing towards the same target. And so, having that last touch attribution model is going to help us reach those business goals. Having said that, we do use multi-touch. We do look at multi-touch, and again, this is full circle. Has a really cool thing where you can look at different models and see how different things are impacting your pipeline. And we do it so we can understand, okay, we should write more resources like this, or we should go to more events like this because they actually help late stage. So that's my perspective on it. I think it's very useful to know, but at the moment we're sticking with something which is simple but means we can move the needle hopefully effectively with the sales team. But Bonnie, I'm very interested to know what you think, what your perspective is.
Yeah, so the main thing about marketing attribution is to make sure that you're building models or you're using models that are really part of your strategy, that are core to your marketing strategy. So so if you're trying to populate the top of the funnel, right, you want to give a lot of credit to campaigns that are early in the sales cycle, the first touch, right? So that could be a logical model to use. If you're trying to understand the impact of your campaigns across the entire sales cycle, multi-touch attribution is a really good way to go. And if you're trying to figure out what the impact of your campaigns later on in the sales cycle, then a last touch model. And then there's kind of strategic things. So maybe you're trying to penetrate a new segment. Maybe you're going after hard on financial services. So you want to figure out across your entire sales cycle, so that would be multi-touch, even spread, crossing that type of model, but in that particular segment. And so in addition to the multi-touch, you would give more weight to campaigns that attract those financial services types of customers. And so that way you can see which campaigns are actually impacting that big strategy that you have. So also you mentioned, Lily, the look back period, and that's really important. So how far do you want to look back? So if you have and it's basically based on your sales cycle. So you have a very short sales cycle, say it's a day, you might have a 2-day look back or something like that. But if you have a really long sales cycle, maybe longer, say 6-month sales cycle, you might want to look back, 3 quarters, or maybe even a year, depending on how, you know, but it's really dependent on your sales cycle. And so the look back period is actually very significant, and you want to make that adjust that based on your sales cycle. So that's basically my general philosophy. I do think that you want to run multiple models at the same time, so you can look at different cuts on this information, because one size does not fit all in all cases, right? Because you might actually want to know what the impact is across the entire sales cycle, or you might want to have a touch model. It just depends on what question you're trying to answer.
Yeah, I think it's also really interesting, the difference. You know, we do look at that multi-touch, and it is vastly different, the stuff that people consume in particular. And it's very, very helpful for our Marcoms team to be able to say to them, hey guys, this thing didn't create revenue in terms of our last touch model, but people are reading it, or these events are like, you know, not good for top of funnel, but actually for customers and upsell, they're really amazing. We've got to keep doing them, even though it doesn't impact our target. So yeah, couldn't agree with that more.
Yeah, so one thing to keep in mind is that there's the modeling part, but then there's the reporting part. And sometimes it's good to kind of keep that in your head, is that when you're reporting on a certain time period, or maybe a segment or something like that. But the modeling, you set up a modeling based on your strategy.
Great. All right, let's do one more question here. You mentioned that you meet with sales quite a bit. What metrics do you discuss and go over typically?
Yeah, we talk a lot about MQL, so qualified leads that have come in, and then we look at the SQL, how many have converted. So we look at those two, and we also look at the conversion metric. And if the conversion metric is really down, there'll be a discussion there around why that is. Or on the flip side, we've had a lot of situations where the conversion metric has been much higher than we expected. So we recently produced product demo videos. Conversion rate was through the roof. So we had a lot of discussions with sales around, okay, how can we point people to these pieces of content? How should we follow up? Like, what's the best way to have conversations? And a lot of that was anecdotal around, you know, our sales team saying, oh, this is, you know, how I've approached it and it's done really well, and then sharing that with their team. So we look at that as well. Yeah, so those are the main pieces of information that we look at. We also do look at follow-up metrics. So we're integrated with Outreach, which our sales team use to follow up, and we'll see like what's the level of close, and do they have good reasons for closing those marketing leads out, and those as well will inspire conversations. And then finally, SLAs. We've mentioned SLAs a lot. In general, they're on point, but that is a metric that we look at and consider heavily when dealing with the sales team, at least. So yeah, those are all things we look at closely.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much. This was so amazing. And thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to be sending out this recording tomorrow morning, so look out for that in your inbox. And Lily, thank you so much for coming on here. And I learned a lot from you. This is great. And you're such a positive energy. So thanks for being here. And thank you, Bonnie. That was amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. Interesting as well to talk to you both.
Thanks for organizing us, Katie. And Lily, thanks for being our customer. And you know, good luck. And let us know how everything goes in 2022.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.
See ya.